Lunch break.
Welcome to lunch break, everybody.
So excited today.
As always, grab your drinks,
Benthin
grab
here
your
with
snacks.
us. Yeah, grab snacks. We're gonna. I think we got something we're gonna add too, right? Seth, our producer, and Mike, caught you off guard back there. We're gonna add a couple things. We might help them out with like a meal, maybe. Like a recipe the night before or something. Not serve them, maybe an email, but just say, hey, if you're gonna try something. Try this meal for the lunch break. Yeah, so we're talking about that.
We're going to give you some lunch ideas now?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I need some. Yeah. Perfect.
Well, hey, guys, we're glad you joined us today. Like us, share us. That's what it's all about. It's a community, and we're getting real close to 500.
Yeah,
Justin.
Closing in. You guys can make that happen.
You guys can make that happen today.
Yes.
So let's get an effort out there. Call your friends, share the page. So excited to have Paul with us today.
Oh, so excited to be here.
A lot of good things that you guys have going on. Justin, you're back for the second time, so family's healthy.
Consecutive weeks is amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, family is healthy. We're actually on a small vacation right now, so it's pretty cool.
With the children you have, the number of children.
Yes.
You know, I got to give a shout out to Justin. He came in on his vacation.
Yes. I'm on a staycation right now.
That's a commitment.
Nothing special. If I was out of town, I wouldn't have came in, but it's hard to just miss a meeting when you're in town, just at your house.
Yeah,
so
you feel it, right?
Yeah,
you feel that. I got to get there.
Yeah, it's tough.
Staycations are the best. So
yes,
nice
they're
work.
amazing.
Nice work.
They're underrated. You know?
Agreed.
Yeah, as long as they don't have to do the house chores.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's the key.
So, but I see sometime in my wife's mind that we're going to get some work done.
Projects.
I feel that there's
the wife approved my staycation for about 1 day, and then after that, I'm dad and husband again.
Yeah,
I have to do the work.
Yeah, my wife asked me to do some things tomorrow, and I have a funeral for a friend, and so I wasn't able to request that, so she's gonna go to the funeral with me. So, well, today we're gonna jump in, and our question from our audience last week was, how do you know you're into something big? And I think that's kind of hard to answer, but it came from our guest, Jim Luff. Jim was a great guest last week, and he talked about doing some things that have actually become a big deal. He talked about starting, I liked his, at the Mount Vernon School, where he started a annual spaghetti feed. And then he's part of the Brews on the Roof, and so he started some things, and he started I think, Jim probably was close to one of the first people who started distance learning. I think he said back in 1996, where he contacted IBM after a girl had an accident and was had some paralysis, and was able to work a deal out with IBM and the school district and got her
to still get her schooling.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
And so that is a big deal, and it got Jim into the point where he started being very interested in charities.
Yeah.
So he started quite a few. So I'll jump in first. A lot of people at Valley Bible Fellowship, they'll join us on something we do, Paul. It's called Serving in September, Mobilizing in March. And so you go to our church this September, which I think is going to be September 25th, is going to be our Serving in September. We're hopefully getting back without any restrictions.
Yes.
We hope we're there. And you come there, you'll see 1,000 to 1,500 people crammed into our Station 316, one of the last ones we did in the sanctuary. But that's not where it started. It started with a few of us, and I think we have a picture of the very first one that we started, and it was at my friend John McCormick's house. And what we did is we went out and did a project. And so as we started it, there's about 6 or 7 of us. We did communion, we laid our face and prayed, and we went out and we planted some flowers. We did a sprinkler system over in a senior citizen living facility. And so we enjoyed it so much as a group that we invited people back with us, and I think we have a picture, and I think that was our one of our last Serving in September. So we didn't know when we did the first one that it would grow into something bigger, and a lot of people don't even know the story. And so I don't think you realize that you're doing something for a first time, and it's going to take off,
yes,
and be big. And we definitely didn't know it back then. John McCormick's the guy that helped me do it, and I want to give a big shout out to John and helping us start that.
Yeah, for me, the big one in my life was just very coming on to the church, and
Oh, that was good.
Pastor Tom grabbed me one day, and I've shared some of this story before, but he had been pacing and praying a whole day looking for a person to lead children's worship.
Well, I had a computer, and all I had was a clip of somebody doing something, and I got to find that person. Everybody showed it to said, that's Justin Greer.
They said it was me. So I've been serving in the junior high and in the college group at the time, which is so funny because I'm over the junior high and the college group right now. It's came full circle. But in that time, he showed me this video of this young man leading kids in worship, jumping and dancing. And he showed me where we were at as a church at the time. And nothing against the person at the time. It was just a different style of worship. Back then, it was slow and the kids' hands were waving. And he goes, I'm trying to turn it into this. And I went, dang it, I can do that. I didn't want to say yes, but just staring at it, I go, dang it, I can do that. So then he equipped me. Pastor Tom gave me, it was the 8th grade class that year of Valley Schools kids from our private school. And he said, you can meet them right after school. I'll come in with you. And he just watched us learn the dance moves for a while. And then I went up first time, did it.
I think I looked at you and go, you got this? And you go, I got this. And I walked out.
And he let me. I remember being terrified, like, this guy is going to let me lead this thing. And then I remember my heart beating, walking out on stage. You hear these kids, they're just ready to worship. I had never worked with kids to that point. I worked with youth, but hadn't worked with kids. Terrified, get out there, start jumping, dancing, shuffling was the big thing back then. And then, like, once the kids saw that the adult was shuffling, they lost their minds.
They did.
They literally did. And to this day, worship team, that was a group of me and me and 5 kids it started with. Now worship team, when you look in the extreme, is still bumping and bouncing with hip hop dance style worship. But the worship team is like it's from 10 to 20 kids deep now, and it's new kids recycling year after year. They still meet Wednesday nights and practice worship. It's crazy to see that whole thing changed. It was just a small video that he showed me one day, but it changed how we did worship in the kids, and it's been awesome.
It's so crazy because I could continue that story because I told Justin that I don't have a job for you either. You know, I go, I'm not paying you to do this.
It very clear.
I'm not paying you to do this. And so we were doing Vacation Bible School, and Justin had the kids going, and Pastor Ron walked up, and he was standing behind me, and he saw one of the songs, and he goes, "Oh my gosh!" I go, "I've been telling you, we've been doing this." So the song ended, and all the kids started to leave, and he goes, "Could we do another one?" So I looked at Justin, and I pointed to I was like, do one more, and I looked at the guy, and Ron's like, "Oh, it's okay, if they're not going to do it, I go, no, waste this." So I go, we had a trademark song called Superman.
Yes.
And so I told the guy, I go, cue up Superman. And so Pastor was sitting there, and Justin was going back to the stage. Now, all the kids in Vacation Bible School, we had like 800 kids. They're going off to their parents, and all of a sudden they heard the first bump of Superman. They all turned around and went back. Crazy. And so just started doing it, and it was just like, it was so on cue, and Pastor Ron goes, "We have to hire him."
Yeah. And little did he know, like, that's what his Sundays were being like all the time with his kids ministry. He was stoked.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
So
New normal.
I forgot about that, Justin. So that was the first time. And
I did I didn't know I was I thought I was just serving the Lord. Didn't know it was something bigger. It would go on to still be going this day. Like that's how worship started going. I'm sure it's gonna jump again to something else soon, but it's just crazy to see that you're a part of something like that.
So if you're out there and you have an idea, and to answer the question, and Paul's going to jump in, sometimes you just have to try it. Paul, you want to jump in on that question?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you could answer that question, but one of the things, so my wife and I have been in Bakersfield for about 4 years now. She came from Visalia, I came from the coast, and we love it here.
You get the question a lot, why'd you come to Bakersfield?
Oh my goodness, I love it here so much. So to be fair, I'll get into this in a little bit, but Bakersfield was the magical solution for us to be together.
I love that.
We had to come to Bakersfield, and I have loved it ever since, and I'm growing to love it more and more every single year. So, but one of the things that we've started, so I work with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, so we do ministry with college students, young adults, and one of the things that we started was a ministry to nursing students. And it's really
the girls that are going to, or guys that are going to be nurses.
Yep. So people that are going to become future nurses, or there's so many different jobs you can have in the hospital, but nurses is a big one. And so we've got a ministry now that has nursing students, so there's different cohorts at Bakersfield College. So we've got nursing students in these groups where they learn holistic care, they learn how Jesus cares for people, they understand their own spirituality, and then they're able to interact with their patients, Muslims, Catholics, Buddhists,
human beings,
anyone.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, you have to understand spirituality yourself. And so that's one of the things that we do. And we look at Jesus because he's pretty good at caring for people spiritually, right? So what we've started, we've got that going, and we've got nursing students, and then we expanded it to pre-nursing students, and then we expanded it to nurses, professionals.
People are already in the field.
People in the field, because turns out you still need support and encouragement. And so
continued education.
Yeah, that's right. So what's so cool about that is we've seen all of that grow in a couple of years. But how did I know that was going to happen? I had no clue.
Yeah.
No clue. And actually, so I think there's a lot of different ways you can answer this question. My answer is I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so lately, my mentor and I have been workshopping this illustration of fishing on a pier. So people that go and fish on a pier, they set up 10 poles, right? And while you set up one, you get it going, and then you hope something bites. But then you move on to the next one. You get that set up, and the next one, and the next one, and by the time you've got 10 set up, chances are one of them has bit, right? And that's kind of my style. I just try to pull on all these different strings and see where God opens a door. And how this happened is I was visiting a church. We had just moved here, and the pastors say oh, turn around, meet someone new. And I did that, and turns out this person was a nursing professor at Bakersfield College, who then connected me with other nursing professors.
I love that.
And I had never done ministry with nursing students, right? So how do you know when you're onto something big? I don't. Maybe there's people that are really smart and they know, but I just don't know.
I think a good answer is start something small.
Yeah.
Start something, because all of ours.
Or start somewhere.
You start somewhere, yeah.
Or start something.
Start doing it.
One of the poles, I love the 10 pole illustration. Throw a hook in the water, right?
Yeah.
So if you're out there, Paul Benthin is saying throw a hook in the water, maybe 10 hooks in the water.
Maybe 10.
And which whatever bites,
yes.
you start it. So I think that sometimes God will put a desire in our heart, but that first step of obedience is sometimes the hardest.
That's right.
And so if you're out there, and like Jim Luff, like Paul Benson, like J2 and I, just step out. It's risky.
Guys, I got to stop us. Very important thing is just taking place. We have hit 500 followers on Facebook. Right now, just happened. You guys have made it happen.
Come on.
They did it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I got the text. I was like, hey, we just asked you guys for this. You guys came through. Thank you.
All we had to do was ask.
Yeah.
We need 1,000. Let's make it happen, guys.
Next week.
What is that telethon that Jerry Lewis used to do?
Keep them coming.
Hey, it's all about you guys. It's all about the show as far as bringing something to you. So I love it.
Interrupted.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Paul, thank you.
Let's just jump into that's a good way to jump into my question with
Yes.
me interrupting you guys. I like to ask the audience something new about them. So what is something that our viewers may not know about you? Something quirky, just something weird, something astonishing that you've accomplished? It could be anything, but what is something that your average person wouldn't know about you?
Yeah, so most people don't realize this, but once I tell them, then they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I'm actually half deaf. I only hear out of one ear. And so I have to walk, if you and I are walking together, I'm going to walk on your left side so I can hear you.
Whoa.
So I don't have to totally turn my head. And if you really want to mess with me, as soon as I walk in a room, just say, hey, Paul, and then look down. And I have no idea where that sound came from. So I'd walk into a room with all my friends, and they would say, hey, Paul, and then look down, and I'm looking around. Who said that? I have no idea. No idea. So.
That's crazy. So was it something that was from birth, or?
Yeah, so I had a fever as a baby, and when babies get fevers, you need to roll them back and forth. They don't want to build up too much heat on one side, and so it just built up heat, severed the nerves. It's actually, you can correct it. It's just surgery that my insurance doesn't cover. So,
Well, you and I share something, because I actually had a ruptured eardrum.
Oh my gosh!
In sports, so I wasn't always, having a hard time hearing. So now I don't hear, and it was interesting because then I started failing the tests in school, the hearing tests. And so that caused me some complications. But nowadays I don't hear normal tones out of my left ear. So I come into awkward moments with men a lot. So somebody will come up and whisper in my ear. Now, when they were whispering, it's really a shock to me because it doesn't come out as a whisper, and it catches my attention, and no matter how much I'm ready for it, I quickly turn this way. And so if it's a man, we're lip to lip. I mean, we are, because I'm like, whoa. And it's so funny because it's happened to some people. They're like, whoa. I go, I just can't hear this here. Yeah. And I know you were trying to whisper low, but that's just not how it's a shock to me.
Yeah.
And so I will always, my wife always sits on this side of me. She knows it. And so, but other things, because I'm like this. Somebody says something, and I'm just like this. I'm not being rude.
Yeah, right.
But this side is, so my wife, when will sit down someplace, she'll look and she'll sit, she'll position herself.
The right side.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I have a few awkward moments with men.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're like, whoa. I'm like, no, nothing personal.
That's right.
So I love that. I love it. And so can I even ask this, because this is personal with me. It takes some overcoming that too, doesn't it? And I think with myself, I explain myself a lot. Now I'll tell people, I just, when people are talking to me, and if I do it, I will consciously turn to them, and I just will tell them, and they don't have to come on the side. I'll just say, I can't hear this here.
That's terrifying. I just came off a sinus infection where my hair was out in both ears.
Sorry.
And it caused me to rage. I was angry that I could not hear. My kids would be saying something, or the TV would be on, and everybody's watching it. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this show right now. Hearing was something I learned I took for granted. Man.
So the scariest moment,
Terrifying.
go for a run in the dark. So I'll be out running, and if a dog starts barking, it could be right at me. Like, it could be 20 feet away. I have no idea. It's absolutely terrifying.
Don't envy it.
My wife has learned. She used to get mad at me, like, why don't you answer me? And I go, I will. She goes, I've been calling your name. So my wife it's the thing I ask her to do is, like, don't turn around and walk away from me and say something.
Yeah.
Because that's for sure just to escape my attention. So I says, and a lot of times she'll do that, or from the other room.
Yeah.
And I'm oblivious. I'm like, whatever I'm doing. And she's like, hey, stop what you're doing and help me.
Yeah.
So I go, before you climb on the ladder, tell me you're going on top of a ladder.
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to take some extra precautions and help people with that.
It's true. I used to keep it to myself and feel a lot of shame about that.
There was.
And there's a lot of things about that. I kind of grew up without a pretty negative view of myself. Part of that was just not having Christ in my life. But I remember a significant moment where I actually, I got a good amount of chest hair, and I hated it. The kids and the baseball team would say, oh, Paul, are you the missing link? I'm like, oh, hilarious. Right.
So funny.
But I remember hating that I had chest hair, right? And I remember one day I took my dad's razor and I started shaving it because I was going to shave it all until it just kind of dawned on me. And I wasn't even a Christian, but I realized I'm looking at the mirror and I was like, this is me. Why would I change me? I just got to accept it. And there was this moment where I felt like I had a sense come over me that said, you can. It's okay. You can accept you. I believe that was Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't think that was my conscience, because my conscience is pretty mean. Let's be real. Very self-critical. So afterwards, I was like, I'm never going to do that again. It was a big moment for me.
Huge.
And then I also realized there's now a hole, a circular hole on my chest hair, which the guys had a lot of fun with that too. So it wasn't quite the missing link.
It was back a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, as I've shared with the audience a lot, is I've got a speech impediment. And then once I had a speech impediment and I had a hearing issue, that was something that I think, and I've shared this before, drove me into being very competitive athletically. Drove me to a point of not healthy. Because I was overcoming.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a great acceptance of who I was, and I wanted to change that in a way that I could control. So,
relatable.
Yes, it is. It is. So I like it.
Let's
dive into your story.
Let's dive into your story. I think you hit it briefly. I want to talk about your child growing up, because you said it it was different. So what was your childhood like?
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I was one of 5 kids, and so I got a bunch of brothers. So we just grew up competing over everything. I'm the second oldest, so I was always in my older brother's shadow. So I always I had to survive. I had to prove myself constantly, and I kind of kept it to myself. But I grew up an atheist, and I wanted nothing to do with God. Part of that was some abuse that happened from Christian Catholic babysitters. So I grew up with this impression that if there is a God, dang, he's a monster. I want nothing to do with that. And then I got a little bit more educated, and I realized actually there's a lot of good reasons why people don't believe in God. At least I thought they were good at the time. And so I really started to kind of firm up this view of you just gotta, it's all on you. It's all on you. There is no God. No one's going to help you. And so it's just on your shoulders, and you either survive and you overcome by overcompensating, or you fade into the background. You disappear, right?
Scary.
So yeah, that's how it started.
Tough mindset.
So what helped bring you out?
Yeah, so my older brother actually took me to a youth group where I became a Christian, and
wow, that's awesome.
Met my first, I mean, it's yeah, I had no idea what male friendships were. I had no idea what real authentic community was. And so I remember my brother taking me to this church, and I sat in the back. I wanted nothing to do with it.
Normal first day of youth group.
Oh my goodness. I was like, I don't care who talks to me and how nice they are. I'm not going to say anything, And of course people came up and talked to me, and I realized oh man, why? I remember going home the first night and being like, why do I have so much against these people?
And why cut them off?
Yeah, what's so wrong with them, Paul? And I was like, no, they're terrible. Terrible. They're going to betray you. They're just trying to work an angle. That was my mindset.
What's their motive?
Walls up. Yep.
Yeah, and so what happened was I went to a camp, and it was really cool. My brother helped me really kind of start to navigate the Christian world, because the Christian world was just weird and different.
Different language, lingo.
World, yes.
People would say things, and I'm like, what? What are you?
What's the definition of that?
They would say words like, oh, well, in Leviticus, and I'm like, is that a person? Is that bread? I don't.
First time I heard you'll be saved by the blood of Christ, I'm like,
You're like, are we vampires?
That needs some explanation for me, And then once I got to that point to saying, what do you really mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, sure,
So that's what led me to Christ, is realizing that what real love was, what real friendship was, what
Authentic.
real community was, where I could be myself. I could finally open up and kind of share all the anger I was holding, all the bitterness I had towards people, towards God, all that stuff. And that lasted for a while, and then I graduated, moved to Vegas for college, and it all went out the window, and I just it was almost like a relapse. I just reverted back to my old ways of it's all on me. I don't need God. He doesn't want me, and I got to make my life happen.
Self-preservation.
Yep, that's right.
Yep. I got to do this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what happened into college, and what's crazy is I ran into InterVarsity Christian Fellowship students everywhere, in the cafeteria, in my dorm room, in my classes, everywhere, and they all invited me to stuff, and I was like, I'm good. Been there,
still
done
have
that.
the walls up. Yeah.
And so it's really interesting that I grew so much in this short time in high school, and then left it all behind. But what brought me back was this supernatural experience. So what happened is I got to this point where I was doing architecture school, I was working in my architecture firm, and I'd worked my way up I'd worked in architecture firms in high school and through college. So I put myself through college, and I had a really nice scholarship from the tobacco company. Thanks, Nevada. But what happened was I did 2 years of college just doing my own thing, pursuing becoming an architect. I was lead designer, project manager in my firm. So I kind of did everything, and my boss would sign his name, right? And so I made it. I did it. Everything that I wanted, I had it, and I was so empty. I remember going home one day and just lying face down on the carpet and just crying myself to sleep, because it was just empty. And that persisted until the summer before my junior year, where I decided, I'm going to find myself. I'm going to reconnect with God. And so I traveled the whole summer, didn't bring a Bible, didn't pray, got back and realized, I just had fun traveling.
Yeah.
I didn't actually do what I wanted to do. And then I remember kind of this like spiritual presence coming over me. And I looked at the wall and said, good, I don't need that. I'm fine. I don't need anything. I don't need to go on a quest to find myself. I have me, I'm good. And the next day I went to work and I shared a baked potato with my coworker and instantly got really sick. So he felt fine. And I had to go home the next day, then spent the next 2 days in the ER and then my first week of my junior year in the hospital. And in the hospital, they ran every test they could think of, spinal tap, CAT scan, barium x-rays, the endoscopic, put a camera in your stomach, look around, I saw the inside of my stomach. That was weird. Really weird. And no results. And I remember on the last day, the doctor came in and was like, hey, no evidence of an ulcer. We don't know what happened to you, but you're better now. You're probably just stressed out. College students get stressed out. So go back to your life. And he left the room. And as soon as he did, I knew, I just had this sense, I knew it's not that. It's got to be more than that. So I said out loud, no, there's got to be more to it than that. And then this might sound weird, but it's what happened. The room filled with smoke, and then it started to glow from inside the room, and it spoke to me audibly, and it said, no, Paul, it's not just stress. You're living your life apart from me. Ooh. And if you do...
I love that.
If you do, you'll eventually end with taking your own life. And that was a very... Because of my background and how I grew up, that was a very personal thing to me to hear. So I knew it was God. In that moment, I felt the most terrified I've ever felt in my life, and also the most at peace, hearing that voice.
Yeah.
And that's just the best way I can describe it.
You had a supernatural experience.
Yeah.
So where to go after that, Paul?
Yeah, so ironically, after that, I called all my friends, hey, come pick me up. They were all busy. But I had the phone number of an InterVarsity person in my phone. And I was hey, pick me up. They took me back, and I'd been to a couple of things. I had met some people. So then immediately after that, I got plugged in with InterVarsity. And what's crazy is, I'll tell you this last story. So it really highlights how God was at work. So I drop all my architecture classes. I just sign up for GEs. And the first class I go to is yoga, So I was like, I need to reconnect with God. Let's get some yoga.
Get some meditation.
Yeah.
That's right. So I go into this yoga room, and there's about 40 women and 2 guys. And my first thought, to be totally honest, was thanks, Jesus. This is great. I love.
I'll meet my spouse.
What a class.
Girlfriend.
Yeah. Getting back, connected with you. This is going to work out well. And then my second thought was come on, Paul, go meet those 2 guys. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I went and talked to one. He didn't want to talk to me. And I talked to the second one. And he turned out, he was well, I'm taking yoga because I'm trying to figure out, I'm trying to find God. I just gotten involved with InterVarsity too, and here's my background. Anyways, we become best friends. We were best men in each other's weddings.
That's amazing.
Right? We discipled each other. We were leaders in InterVarsity, and so just God's the way that God works is crazy.
Yeah.
So he's got this plan.
His plan is always greater than ours.
It is.
That's right.
It is. And then the key too is that you went with it.
Responded.
Yeah, and I think that's big, as we always talk to our audience. I always believe in Jeremiah 29:11. He has a plan, but it's his plan.
That's right.
He doesn't support your plan. That always doesn't work out. It just
thankfully he puts in some roadblocks for my plans.
Yes. So I love it. So the InterVarsity connection was always knocking. Or tapping on your shoulder.
Yes.
I like that connection because you dove into it. I guess there's something kind of cool too, how you and your wife met.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So my wife is amazing. You should have her on the show. Frankly, she'd be so much better and have
people
cooler
say that,
stories.
don't they?
Yes. Multiple guests have said that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, seriously. So Stephanie and I, after I had a string, even as a Christian leader, I had a string of about I'll be honest, like years, almost a decade of unhealthy relationship after the next, even as a Christian leader. And I realized that I had a lot of issues and healing that needed to happen, that I just kind of wanted to busy myself with ministry and ignore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God never lets you do that, does
Thankfully.
he?
Thankfully. Oh my goodness. So for years I did that, and to the point where I finally got to this place where I was like, I'm really sick and tired of going from one unhealthy relationship to the next. Started getting some therapy, started getting some counseling, which was super helpful. And then after I did like 3 years where I was just focused on community. Like, I want to be satisfied in Jesus.
Yes.
And I think we all have to get to that point.
You have to.
Amen.
Because no one's going to fill any hole in your life. And if I was really honest, I was looking for someone to fill the holes.
We all are, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want it to be somebody else, maybe a woman or something else, a boss. It's just something. It's human. You try to put something there.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, there's this song from camp that the kids have been singing now. It's called "Holes in Me," and there's a line in it that says, "These holes in you have filled the holes in me." It's the only thing that can really fill us is what happened to Jesus, and we've been rocking that song hard. But those lyrics are sick. These holes in you filled the holes in me. I love it, man, and it's a reminder that like the only thing that can really place that emptiness in your heart, the lack of love we feel when we're lonely, is Jesus Christ, and you learn that over. I feel like everyone learns it over time.
What I love what you said, and this is something that with the audience, we got to remember this, is that you came to Christ, but you still weren't everything that you really needed to be.
Yep.
I remember that one of the first things when God in many ways spoke to me, Tom, you got a woman problem. I'm like, well, I don't got a woman problem. I got a woman.
Yeah.
Like, FYI.
Right.
I was like, God's like, no, I just need you alone.
Yeah.
And I actually had to make that happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was something amazing. And my wife and I have a really cool story with that. So but it was that moment that I had to get fixed. It wasn't just coming to Christ. It was let him to start ministering to those holes that were in me that the world had pressed into there.
Yep.
And I tried to do everything physical, and God had to unwind some of that too. So I love when people come out with the real story.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, I was a Christian for all these years and still didn't have it together.
Yep.
And so then how did you and Stephanie?
Yeah, so super fun. So I finally get to this place where I'm like, okay, I feel like I am satisfied in God, so now I'm looking. And I start looking around, asking around, didn't really see many options. So I signed up for online dating. I figured, I really can't be above it. Let's just try it. And honestly, it was really hard to be discerning. Like, are you really Christian? Or does it just kind of look like that? Ended up meeting up with one other person after messaging, oh my gosh, 50 people. But then I see Stephanie's profile and some of my friends are in her pictures. So I'm thinking, wait, who are you? So I call my friends and they're like, oh yeah, actually you two have been invited to the same barbecues, the same weddings.
What?
For like years, and you were never in the same place at the same time. Just crazy, right? So
I love that.
So we meet up. So she's from Visalia. I said, I'm from the coast. So, a lot of our dates were like here in Bakersfield. So our first date is over in the Fort Tejon outlets at Starbucks, right?
Okay. Whoa.
Having a great conversation,
Starbucks and clothes.
That's right. That's right. So we're having this great conversation, and she's a pastor, so super interesting, got all these cool ideas, and just really fun conversation. And then she starts talking about a story of going to Alaska, and I'm like, you got to show me a picture, So she's like, sure. Reaches down, realizes my purse is not there. And then we realize, oh, her purse has been stolen. So we run outside, and we use our phones to figure out that they just used her credit card at the McDonald's across the street. So I run over there.
Real life experience, crime story.
Horrible.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like you can see me. I'm like a little guy, but I've run over to McDonald's. I'm gonna do something, Of course, we don't find anything. And then my thought is like, well, maybe they like ditched the purse and kept the cat, So we start digging through all the dumpsters, and so we dig through all the dumpsters for a while and all the trash cans.
Great first date.
Yeah.
great
that's a
first date,
tough
right?
one.
And then we call AAA, and they say they're coming, so we celebrate. We go to McDonald's and get ice cream cones, And then AAA comes, and they're like, "Oh, you have a Prius. Like, we'll just unlock the car." And Stephanie says, "Well, that's why you're here. My keys were stolen. I can't unlock the car."
no.
And they're like, "Oh, well, we don't know how to." We don't know how to get it on their thing. You'll have to sign this waiver. And she's like, "I'm not doing that. You're going to drag it onto the, your truck." And so she says, "Well, my sister has a spare key." So she calls her sister. They're in Big Bear snowboarding. And so her sister's like, "Can't help you." And so
Not driving back 5 hours.
at this point, I don't know, it's like 11 p.m., right? We already thought we were fine. I was going to use, she didn't have AAA, but I had AAA. So I was like, "I got you." So it's all working together, And then AAA doesn't work out. And then she says, "Well, there is someone else who has a spare key, and that's my dad." So she calls her dad, and so her
Meet
dad
your
comes
dad on
down.
the first date.
Oh,
So her dad shows up. Now it's 2:30. It's like late, and then her mom's there too, because I guess she was thinking like, "Well, this is interesting. Like now we gotta who's this guy?" And so her dad sits down, and his first words are, "So Paul, tell me about yourself."
the interview.
You don't get that question for a few days.
my
Way down the
goodness.
road.
So that's how we met. I waited with her until her parents showed up, and then I left and got home at, I don't know, super late, like 5 a.m. And then she went to church and didn't have her keys and was constantly asking people like, "Oh, hey, can you unlock this door?" And they're like, "Well, where are your keys?" And she's like, "Well,"
Yeah.
and so
The story got repeated.
Yeah.
yeah, it was
I
crazy.
love it.
So
I love it. Well, you got married, and you have a daughter.
yeah, Finley, beautiful little girl.
Awesome name too.
Yeah, and foster kids.
Yeah, so what's funny about it is when we got married, we argued about what to do with kids so much. And so we finally got to this place where we're like, okay, we should stop arguing. Maybe we should start praying more about this.
Isn't that a great marital tool?
Yes.
How many times has your wife, who is a pastor and you're in ministry, come to that
Yep.
conclusion? My wife will say, "Maybe we should pray."
Maybe we should just.
Yeah.
pray.
Well, what a unique.
That's right.
Prayer is always a good thing.
I love that
That's
everyone
right.
thinks that it's always our first, like, something happens and we just go, "Okay, let's pray real quick."
Yeah, that's right.
No, we
Someday.
snap, and then go, "Wait a minute, let's get God involved," and then he fixes it. But people
right.
assume it's the other way around.
That's right.
So funny.
I hope to one day get there.
Yes, my goal is, and I think we've all had times where we've done it right, and you go, "Oh well,
Yeah.
we just prayed. This is getting out of hand. This is the enemy. Let's call him out." But that's few in between for us. It's usually we go at it first.
Usually prayer
That's right.
works.
That's
My
right.
wife will go, "Why don't you pray?" So you prayed about foster kids specifically?
Well, we
or
just prayed about what to do. So to be honest, at the time, I was like, well, maybe we shouldn't even have kids. Maybe we should just focus on investing in people and youth, And we really argued about that and went back and forth, started praying, and then finally got onto the same page where we were like, okay, God, we just want you to tell us, like, what do you want? You know best, And so we went on different trips and came back together, and we got used to asking each other, "Hey, did you get anything from prayer, about kids?" And so we got back and we asked each other this question, and we both said we felt like God was calling us to foster and adopt, not have our own kids. So at that point, if God tells me something, I'm like all in, So I schedule my surgery, my vasectomy, and then hopefully this isn't too much information, but we're
that's-
preventing on like multiple levels.
Yeah.
And then a week before my surgery date, find out we were pregnant, which
God always
blew our
comes
minds.
through, isn't it?
silly, just silly.
We had Mike Green on our show one time, and they had a miracle baby right before adopting. So
Wow, okay.
I love that story.
Yeah, so that's where we were like, okay, God, you obviously want us to have one
Yes.
biological kid, and then I still got my surgery, and
Yeah.
we've been fostering other kids. We had a 3-year-old girl, which was amazing. It was such a cool experience to have her in our home, teach her how to pray, and then we had 2 little boys for like a week, which was chaos. It almost broke us. So now we're at the point where we're like, okay, we'll take one at a time. How about like one at a time?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that's really on our hearts, and to love people that maybe got kind of a hard
Yes.
deal of hand. You
Yeah.
know?
I love it when people go in and organically, like you guys have. So tell us, let's wrap it up with InterVarsity.
Yes.
Your involvement. I love InterVarsity, what they do. I love the fact that you're catching kids at moments in college that are very decisive moments that they are. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hooked. I want to do this for the rest of my life. So when I first started doing ministry, I was in Santa Barbara for a while, and then Camarillo, Oxnard, and now here.
Okay.
All doing InterVarsity, and it's been so cool to see what God does. And one of my favorite things that we do is this thing. I mean, a lot of people do it, but you pray and you ask God to tell you where to go,
Yes.
and then you go to those places. And so, I mean, this just happened.
Kind of like Faith Walk.
Yeah, we do them in the young adults group.
Dude, that's
killer.
right.
Yes.
It's my favorite thing to do. And so I love teaching and training students like how to do that, how to hear the voice of God and then act on it.
Yeah.
Turns out that is like one of the key, most foundational things.
I think hearing God's voice, and it's so intricate how you do that. I love the fact that you're teaching college students how to do that.
Yeah, because I can hear the voice of God through Scripture. I can hear it through my mentor, through community. I can hear it directly through prayer, through the Holy Spirit, right? And so cool. Like, for example, I was at Bakersfield College doing this with a couple of students, and we went to a girl that she was sitting, like, looking kind of down, and I all of a sudden walked up to her and remembered her name. I had met her 2 years prior to that. And I'm not going to say it over the air, but I went up to her and I was like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Like, how's it going? And she's like, I don't think we've ever met. And before I knew what I was doing, I said, actually, yeah, we met outside of the cafeteria 2 years ago. You were telling me about this history class that you were taking. And her eyes got wide. And I said, but that's not actually why I'm here. Like, why we're here is because we felt like God wanted us to come to this spot and find people right inside the gym, right where the stairs are. That's where we felt like we were supposed to go. And here you are. So can we have a conversation about God, And she was like, well, that's kind of crazy because last night I said, God, you have one more chance.
Oh, wow. I love those stories.
I love them.
One more chance.
Yeah.
And she was like, and then I was going to walk away and I was going to do something to hurt myself. And I was like, well, does this convince you? Like, this is how much God values you, how much he sees you, how much he wants you,
Yeah.
And so it was super cool. After that, I got her plugged into a different ministry, not InterVarsity, but one that fit her needs better.
And you took 2 other college students with you.
Yeah.
What was their expression when they actually kind of felt like that? Because those are inspirational moments.
Yes.
Oh,
you don't
my
forget
goodness.
them.
One of them looked at me and said, Paul, like, are we in Acts? Is that where we are? And I was like, yeah, we've been there the whole time.
That's where we're at. Yes.
Paul, isn't that so cool? Because if you're out there, sometimes you're the answer to somebody else's prayer.
Yeah.
That's right.
Being obedient, And I love the fact that you were obedient, and that takes risk too.
Yeah.
As you're helping 2 college students find that foundational experience and have one like that, like you said, Justin, that doesn't leave you.
Yeah.
It's just, I always tell people, either that's real or it isn't. And you
That's
can't
right.
make that stuff
And you
up.
can't
I
make
love
that up. The timing, God is always on time. So,
Paul, so is there, like, you keep mentioning a mentor?
Yeah.
Is there somebody that was that in your life?
Yeah, I've had a mentor he actually lives here in Bakersfield, and so when I was on the coast, I would come to Bakersfield to like meet with him, or we would do phone calls. And that's something that InterVarsity kind of builds into the system. Like, you have to have a spiritual director, you have to have a mentor, because they know, oh, if you're like constantly doing and like giving, like if you're going to lead, you have to be led.
Yes.
Right.
And you have to have somebody that will pour into you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so many people miss that one thing.
That's
it's
right.
because you pour yourself out, pretty soon you're empty.
Yeah.
If you don't have anybody pouring back into you, I love the fact that you do that. Is there any motto or verse that you're kind of as a life, something that kind of maybe points you north all the time?
Yeah, one of my favorite like scriptures is like, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing, like Psalm 23. And I constantly, I think it's my personality, but I constantly see the holes, right? What we were talking about. I constantly see like what's not happening, where we're not advancing the ministry, like what's not happening in my marriage, what's not happening in my parenting. Like, that's just, I just naturally see it first, you know, and I have to I'm getting better, right? Especially with the influence of my wife, she's making me more of a positive person. And I wouldn't call myself jaded, you know, but I'm very real, right? And I know the world's jacked up, right? And I want to manage my expectations. But I'm learning to hold on to hope. I'm learning to see where God is at work, even in where it seems like he's not.
When he's silent.
Right? When he's silent.
Yes.
And so that's something that I can say, I lack nothing. In whatever situation I'm in, God has a way for me to meet him and to move forward.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's going to work out. Right? Does not mean it's going to work out, but it means that there's a way to move forward.
Yes, that's good.
And I think people that are human have to admit that.
Yeah.
And you have to say, God, I know you've got a plan. And today it may not be evident, but you do have a plan.
That's right.
And
That's
I do
right.
trust you. So, Paul, I love talking to you. I think God's got you on the right track. The experience. You're a great guest. I love it today. So, anything you want to leave our audience with? Anything last thoughts or?
Yeah, I just want to say that for those of you who are local, Bakersfield, love you.
Yeah.
I love this city. I want to die here. I just love what God's doing here. I think there's so many opportunities. I think there's so many windows. There's so many things. And the main thing that's on my heart is connecting people with the right fit.
Oh, that's so
right.
important.
So I talk to a lot of pastors, and a lot of them say I wish more people in my ministry or my church would be serving. And I think it's a matter of the right fit. So just to give you one example, what we've done is bring in local nurses and doctors to share their stories with these nursing students that I'm doing ministry with. And it's just a win-win. It makes them fall in love and want to go to their job with so much more life. They get to give back, and the students eat up everything that they say. And so some of them that I've talked to have said, I've asked them, do you serve in your church? And they're like, no, I'm not an evangelist. I'm not a preacher. But I'm like, but you were preaching at the nursing students. You were encouraging that, so you are a preacher. It just needs to be the right fit for you to really get that. So that's my heart, connecting people with the right fit, volunteers. And then what that means is I have to start specific ministries. If I've got some of these amazing nurses and we want them to serve, then I got to start a nursing ministry with students, right?
You know what? I think Christianity, I think the Bible is the most optimistic book there is.
Yep.
And like you said, you get excited about doing that and then even venturing forward on something new to help them get involved.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so much. I love having you.
Love you guys. This is great.
Yes.
Such a fun show too.
Oh, love having you. So next week we got kind of a treat, and I'm not even going to look at our producers.
We're not going to look them
because next week we have Pastor Ron Vietti and Josh Vietti on our show. So that means
there's only three
spots.
So we're going to have to.
Seth is over there and Mike's peeking around the corner. They have no clue. I don't even know if we have 4 mics.
We also cameras, mics. We'll figure it out for you guys next week.
But the cool thing is that our production were brought by Encourage Media Production, which was a kind of a vision birthed from Josh Vietti.
Yes.
And who started this show. And Pastor Ron has got some new things happening next week, and I get to be involved with some of that stuff. So he's going to announce it.
It's coming.
Yeah, he's announcing on this show. So tune in next week, and love to have you guys. We want to thank our executive producer, Seth Parker, our on-site producer, Mike Harvey. Creative consultants, Tessa and Taylor Touchstone. We always appreciate that.
AKA T squared.
I love that. And you guys have a great week. You can get a hold of me at Pastor Tom at vbf.org.
You can reach me at jgreer@vbf.org, and you can reach Paul.
Paul Benthin at university.org.
Yep. And don't hesitate to reach out, because God has multiple tools, and I think, Paul, he's using you mightily.
Dude,
we're on the road to 1,000 followers on Facebook. Let's make it happen.
We can do it.
See you guys soon.
Can do it.
This was Lunch Break.
Bye.